In 1911, the quiet, respectable exterior of Frederick Henry Sidon, a London insurance agent, was shattered by the death of Elizabeth Barrow, a wealthy, elderly woman who had been living with Sidon and his family. Elizabeth, a spinster with considerable financial assets, died suddenly after a brief illness. Her symptoms were vague but consistent with severe gastrointestinal distress at the time, often dismissed as gastric fever. What made her death suspicious was the timing. Just before she died, Elizabeth had transferred control of her annuities worth hundreds of pounds to Sidon. Despite her previously good health, her rapid decline in the financial motive raised red flags. Scotland Yard began an investigation and brought in Dr. William Wilcox, a respected toxicologist, to determine the cause of death. This case would become a turning point in forensic science as Wilcox pioneered the use of quantitative analysis in toxicology. He developed a meticulous method of measuring the precise amount of arsenic in body tissues, calculating it in milligrams per kilogram of body weight. He ran hundreds of tests to establish baseline arsenic levels and compared them to the levels found in Elizabeth's organs, which were significantly elevated, consistent with a lethal dose. Wilcox's work was revolutionary. It provided numerical scientific proof that Elizabeth had not only been poisoned but had received a fatal quantity of arsenic over time. This shifted the forensic standard from presence of poison to quantifiable proof of intentional poisoning, setting a precedent for future toxicology work. At trial, Wilcox's detailed testimony was central to the prosecution. He explained not only the presence of arsenic but also how it was administered in doses likely mixed with food or medicine. The jury was convinced and Frederick Sidon was found guilty of murder and executed in 1912. This case is historically important not only for its sensational elements, a respected man poisoning a vulnerable woman for money, but also because it marked the scientific maturation of forensic toxicology. It was the first time toxicological evidence provided not just proof of poison, but proof of intent through dosage, solidifying the discipline's role in modern criminal investigations. How does the presence of poison help prove criminal intent?
The presence of poison in a victim's body does not automatically prove criminal intent, but it is a crucial phase of evidence that, when combined with other factors, can significantly strengthen a case for homicide. Poison as evidence of homicide. The detection of a specific poison in a victim's system establishes a cause of death. This is first step in proving a crime occurred. However, proving homicide requires demonstrating that poisoning was intentional or not accidental or self-inflicted. Establishing a criminal intent. There are several factors in addition to presence of poison are needed to prove criminal intent. First, access to the poison. Investigators must demonstrate the accused had access to the specific poison found in a victim. This could involve purchase records, possession of the poison, or knowledge of its location. Second, opportunity. The accused must have the opportunity to administer the poison. This could include proximity to the victim, knowledge of their routines or access to their food and drink. Third, motive. A clear motive for the crime strengthen the case. This could be financial gain, revenge, or a relationship conflict. Victimology, the study of the victim, life and circumstances, plays a key role in determining establishing criminal intent. There are several factors, in addition to the presence of poisons, are needed to prove criminal intent. First, access to the poison. Investigators must demonstrate the accused had access to the specific poison found in a victim. This could involve purchase records, possession of the poison, or knowledge of its location. Second, opportunity. The accused must have the opportunity to administer to the poison. This could include proximity to the victim, knowledge of the routines, or access to their food or drink. Third, motive. A clear motive for the crime strengthens the case. This called financial gain, revenge, a relationship conflict. Victimology, the study of the victim, life and circumstances, play as a key role in determining motive. Lack of alternative explanations. Investigators must rule out accident, poisoning, suicide, or natural causes. A thorough investigation, including toxicology report, autopsy findings, and witness statements, is necessary. Method of administration. The method of poisoning can suggest premeditation, a carefully planned method, such as slow poisoning over time, points toward intent to kill. There is the challenges and proving intent. Even with the presence of poison, proving a criminal intent can be challenging. The defense might argue accidental poisoning, self-harm, or that someone else administered the poison. Therefore, a strong case requires meticulous investigation and compelling evidence.
What organs or body tissues are commonly tested for poison?
Organs and tissue commonly tested for poisoning cases. First is blood. Blood is primary specimen for detecting and concentration of toxicants in the bloodstream. It helps determine the quantity of poison ingested, its effect, and the time of death. Blood must be collected before treatment is administered to avoid affecting results. Number 2, liver. Liver is a primary tissue tested due to its role in metabolizing toxicants, poison, and drugs often concentrate in the liver, making the detection easier. Third is hair. Hair used for long-term exposure cases, as toxins can be found in the hair shaft. Hair provides a longer window for detection of blood in or liver. Samples are unavailable. Fourth is urine. Urine is more reliable for workplace testing than forensic cases, and as it may not always be available post-mortem. Urine indicates substance ingestion but not the time of ingestion. 5 is vitreous humor. The clear gel in the eye often analyzed for blood, alcohol, and other drugs. Useful in cases involving motor vehicle trauma, workplace accidents, suicides, and homicides. Number 6 is stomach contents. Stomach contents provides clues in overdose or acute poisoning cases, as it contains an undissolved substance. The total amount of substance is more important than its concentration. 7 is kidney. Kidney tested in case of heavy metal poisoning and exposure to other poisons. Kidney also provides insight into the body's elimination process. Third is bile. Collected in homicide and suspicious death cases to detect toxins. It helps determine the concentration of substance in the body. Number 9 is lung fluid. Lung fluid used in case involving volatile substance abuse. It detects substance inhaled into the body. And lastly, bone and bone marrow. Bone marrow tested when necessary, but their usefulness is limited by availability and condition. Difficult to determine the time of toxins deposition in bones. These specimens are collected during autopsies or post-mortem examinations and are analyzed in laboratories using techniques like immunoassay and chromatography to identify the presence and concentration of toxins.
What were the challenges faced by forensic toxicologists in the early 1900s?
The context. In the early 1900s, forensic toxicology was still developing as a science. Its main goal was to detect and identify poisons in the body, especially alkaloids, which are naturally occurring compounds found in plants, like morphine, quinine, or atropine, that can be used as poisons. The challenges faced. The first one is detection and identification of poisons. Detecting poisons in biological samples like blood, stomach contents, or tissues was difficult because the methods were not very sensitive or specific at that time. Alkaloids are complex molecules and their presence could be masked by other substances in the body, and making identification tricky. The second one is increase in manufactured poisons. As industries grew, more chemically manufactured poisons and drugs became available. This meant toxicologists had to deal with a wider variety of substances, some of which were new or poorly understood. And the third one is limited analytical techniques. Early tests for poisons were often flawed. They might give false positives or negatives. Like for example, some tests relied on color reactions that could be ambiguous. There was a need for more accurate, reliable, and sensitive methods to identify poisons in complex biological samples. And the fourth one is evolving substance landscape. The early 20th century saw the rise of new drugs and chemicals, both medicinal and toxic. Toxicologists had to keep up with these new substances to detect them properly. And why these challenges mattered? Without precise tests, it was difficult to prove poisoning cases in court. False negative could let guilty parties go free, while false positive could wrongfully accuse innocent people. This underscored the need to develop better scientific methods, which ultimately led to advances in chemical analysis techniques like chromatography and spectrometry in later years. In summary, early forensic toxicology struggled with detecting poisons because the available tests were unreliable and new poisons were constantly emerging. These challenges motivates scientists to improve analytical methods, laying the foundation for modern toxicology.
Lastly, what are the biggest contribution of forensic toxicology in solving a case? Forensic toxicology significantly contributes to solving cases by providing scientific evidence and expert analysis. It helps to identify substances, determine the cause of death, link substances to crimes, and inform investigations. Forensic toxicologists can detect and quantify various substances in biological samples, providing critical evidence in cases involving substance abuse, poisoning, or overdose. Their expertise can also help reconstruct events and inform public health initiatives by analyzing toxicology reports and providing expert testimony. Forensic toxicologists plays a vital role in bringing justice to victims and their families. Ultimately, forensic toxicologists' contribution can make a significant difference in the outcome of investigations and court proceedings.